Hey everyone, it's Wednesday, time for Wisdom Wednesday. So the last several weeks we've been walking through the hallmarks of aging, and it's been a little tedious, I'm sure, for many of you, but there was a method to the madness. I'm hoping that over the next several weeks, by looking at different supplements and lifestyle choices through the lens of these hallmarks, that we can begin to develop protocols and looking at supplements by which we can then affect certain areas of these hallmarks, because not all of us are at the same place and need the same thing at any particular time. And as I walk through a lot of supplements, it can be a little overwhelming, and as I like to tell a lot of folks, this is a full-time job, just taking all the things that we want to take, and as we read about things. So sometimes you just have to prioritize, and oftentimes I'll rotate through, and that's another part of it, is understanding balance, and at times where we need to perhaps be more proactive in one area or another, versus just having to do these things all the time. And so some cycling actually might be beneficial for many of us in certain areas at certain times, depending on time of year perhaps, or if we're traveling, or if we're particularly very active. For instance, if we're going to do a triathlon or a marathon or some type of major athletic type of event, trying to stay on top of that, because we know that certain things in doing a lot of activity as we age can actually be more harmful than good, and trying to set up really good programs and protocols for which to live and be as optimal. And as we're looking at this aging thing, adding health span to our lifespan. So today I thought I'd look at a supplement called Resveratrol, and we've heard of this particular product. I know that I can remember hearing it years ago, perhaps on 20 Minutes or one of those nighttime TV shows that introduced it, and the big take home at that point was, it's in red wine, and of course at that point sales of red wine went up statistically significantly and have continued to do so. But the reality is that for resveratrol, you'd have to drink lots and lots and lots of red wine, which would not be healthy at all. So we now can put this in a powder or a capsule and take resveratrol. But in looking at resveratrol through the lens of optimal aging, I thought we could kind of, begin to reevaluate things through that portal, if you will, because what resveratrol does is it reduces oxidative stress, it helps with energy metabolism, it improves nutrient sensing, but its primary activity is through a set of genes called sirtuins, and particularly sirtuin 1. And through this, we get improved metabolic benefit, we get reduced oxidative stress, and the studies that are out there, and many are going on, particularly in the realm of anti-aging. So it's not only good for anti-aging, but it's good for management of neurodegenerative issues. It's very good as an anti-cancer approach as well. And as we age, the biggest killers are going to be type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's or Parkinsonian type syndromes, and then of course cancer. So we really want to affect the gamut, and resveratrol is one of those particular substances that really does kind of click a lot of boxes for us. And so let's walk through that just a little bit. We know that resveratrol in and of itself is a very small molecule, and in many of the early studies they were using this particularly in animal models, but were not administering it with a meal or with fat, and we're not seeing much results. But we know that resveratrol, in order to get optimal absorption and benefit, needs to either be given with a meal or with a fat. In fact, when you read David Sinclair's book on lifespan, he takes his every morning in a powder form in a small amount of yogurt that he makes. And so that it needs to be, because it's what's called hydrophobic, it needs to be in fat so that it can absorb. It doesn't like to be in just water, so to speak. But you can find resveratrol obviously in grapes, red grapes, but you can find it in blueberries, cocoa, strawberries, peanuts. There are different cranberries, different food substances, but again, trying to get as much in those foods is going to be challenging. So a supplement certainly is great. It can activate the SIRT1 gene. It also improves AMPK, which it has to do with a lot with extending life that we've seen in both yeast models and animal models, particularly mice models. But it helps with energy metabolism. It improves glucose metabolism and improves insulin sensitivity, particularly in obesity, and is a great substance for, even though it's not a great weight loss medication, it can contribute to weight loss for many people. It also works on NAD, which we've talked a lot about, and NAD is vital for energy production. It induces autophagy, which is that cellular renewal. It helps sort of look out for those cells that are what we call senescent, meaning that they're zombie or basically dead cells that can contribute negatively to the environment, and seeks them out and helps to cause cell death in these particular cells. It's called apoptosis or apoptosis, depending on who you listen to, but the correct pronunciation is apoptosis. And it also protects with age-related type issues, particularly in the eye. For instance, macular degeneration. It can help with preventing that. There's also several studies showing in animal models that it can actually prevent type 2 diabetes, as well as improve insulin sensitivity in people who may be pre-diabetic. It has been shown to be anti-cancer in many ways, so this is great. It induces the cell death, like I mentioned. We've seen a reduction in lymphomas, particularly B-cell lymphomas and liver cancer cells, and inducing that apoptosis or cell death. And it's also been shown to decrease risk for colon cancer. So overall, we see that resveratrol hits a lot of buttons on our hallmarks. It improves genetic instability. There's also been studies that show that it increases telomere length. So it increases and induces telomerase, which can increase telomeres, those little end caps on the end of our DNA. It helps improve proteostasis, that protein folding. It obviously has some nutrient sensing ability to improve the dysregulated system of nutrient sensing as we age. It improves mitochondrial function, DNA function as well, both in the cell as well as the DNA in the mitochondria, and certainly cellular senescence that we've looked at. So it does click a lot of boxes as far as the hallmarks of aging. Now, dosing is important. Anywhere from 500 to 1,000 milligrams have been shown to be of benefit. And but again, you might want to just cycle in and out, not something you wouldn't necessarily want to do, but you do want to take it either with a meal or with fat. And there are certain forms of resveratrol or benzene that can be available and utilized in the body. And so the way to take this generally is just an oral form. You don't need to do any injectable forms at all, and certainly not something we put in IVs. So I would just recommend looking into resveratrol as a part of your protocol. And if you have any questions or any thoughts or ways that you would like to incorporate this into your protocol, I would certainly be happy to answer any questions that you have. And we'll continue with this way of looking at supplements in the coming weeks and continue to kind of build on this idea of the hallmarks of aging and how we can approach our longevity through that lens, and ways that and products that we can take to optimize our health. You all have a great week, and we'll talk again next week.